Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our fourth webinar for the Timor-Leste webinar series. Today is a very special webinar that we're going to have. It is called Investing in Timor-Leste, Market Capital and Strategic Insights from Genexa Advisory. Actually, investing in Timor-Leste or investment is a very long-term kind of a topic going on, and this is why we have a Genexa Advisory, mainly the managing director of Genexa Advisory, Gaurav, joining us from Darwin, Australia. Gaurav, thank you so much for joining. How are you today?
Hi, Karam. Thank you so much. No, I'm really well, thank you. And as you alluded to, Gaurav Sareen, I'm a managing director at Genexa Advisory, and I'm joining you from Darwin, Northern Territory today. But I did spend the last week or so in Timor and Dili, and so spent a lot of time over there. Just to share about Genexa. So at Genexa, we have nearly 2 decades of experience specializing in helping businesses, governments, and investors turning strategy into executable action. So we really are focused on connecting big ideas with capital and delivery. We've worked across Southeast Asia and the Pacific on projects in energy, infrastructure, and economic development. And I'm really excited today to talk about Timor-Leste because the timing couldn't be better with Timor recently joining ASEAN as the 11th member. That step alone connects the beautiful country to a market of over 600 million people and signals its readiness to compete, collaborate, and grow as part of the regional economic community.
Great, Gaurav. I mean, I think exactly the timing couldn't be any better, especially in regards to investment. I mean, investing in Timor-Leste is a very wide topic. You just introduced Genexa Advisory as well. You have a lot of clients. I'm sure your clients is asking you a lot of questions regarding Timor-Leste. I mean, this is why I want to start asking you first, what was the actual vision of Genexa Advisory? When we're talking about investment or ambitious plans, a lot of international investors comes to advisories and ask them, like, what kind of insights can you give us? What is the risks? What is the advantages to invest in Timor-Leste and whatnot? From your perspective as a managing director of Genexa Advisory, what kind of projects or sectors are most likely to attract early international investments? Not only that, but how can Genexa Advisory help them to enter Timor-Leste as let's say, a strategic partner? If I am coming to you as an international investor, I don't know anything about Timor-Leste, I want you to help me enter that kind of a market. Do you present me kind of a case study or statistics, or how do you usually, let's say, guarantee or make the investor a bit more relaxed to enter such a market as well?
Yeah, no, thanks, Karam, for the question. I think it's a great question. I guess if I can start with, in terms of the question around which projects or sectors are most likely to attract international investment. I think from my perspective, Timor-Leste is at a really interesting and exciting crossroad. Obviously with the recent entry into ASEAN, I think the country is opening up to regional trade and investment corridors in a way we haven't seen before. From my perspective, I think 3 big areas stand out: energy, mining, and infrastructure. The greater Sunrise gas field remains a major draw card. But what's even more exciting is the growth we're starting to now see in the renewables sector as well. Solar and wind projects are starting to define Timor-Leste's energy future, and particularly its focus around displacing fossil fuels such as gas as the energy mix. Then there's also obviously infrastructure through projects like the T-Bar port, which is transforming how goods move in and out of the country, for example. I think it's just not just a port, it's a symbol of readiness for investment, and will hopefully bring some adjacent investment opportunities to the table. Certainly for investors, there are kind of opportunities that combine impact with return, so helping shape a young nation's economic story, I believe. In terms of how Genexa can lean in and support those projects and opportunities, look, we provide end-to-end, business advisory and financial advisory services. So from helping organizations with defining their strategic plans to helping them develop feasibility studies and business cases, to helping table investment proposals for final investment decision and funding. We provide end-to-end support and provide clients with an opportunity to work hand in glove to support those investment decisions in the market.
Mhm. Yes, Gaurav. I mean, thank you so much. When you're talking about the main three investments opportunities, such as energy, mining, and infrastructure, these three pillars of the actual Timor-Leste's economy is very important to Timor-Leste, and it's actually very interesting to expand to Timor-Leste and work in such a diverse of market as well. Regarding Genexa advisory, there's a lot of, let's say, numbers and statistics that usually advisors are relying on, such as a specific kind of economy statistics, a specific kind of case studies, or regional historic, let's say, economic lessons from Timor-Leste as well. Regarding, like, let's say, laws, how are Timor-Leste's business laws and investment regulations evolving? We have a lot of laws and governmental, let's say, bodies in Timor-Leste, that there's a lot of things how to enter, where to start from. Should I work directly with the government? How can I expand to Timor-Leste? What kind of further reforms could make the country more competitive for foreign investors? For example, taxes, any kind of things that help the investor to enter Timor-Leste. Will the government have any kind of actions to enter such a foreign, let's say, rules, like to make the rules easier to enter Timor-Leste? How can Genexa Advisory give and make it easy for the investor to enter Timor-Leste? Do you have such a market report that you give to the investor, or such a guidance that can the investor go to and invest in Timor-Leste?
Thanks, Kram. I think that those are excellent questions for sure. From a in market information perspective, we've got in-country investment guides that are downloadable for free on the Genexa Advisory website. So that covers things such as business registration requirements, regulatory requirements for prospective investors when they're contemplating investing into Timor. So that's available, in terms of general overviews from on our website. And obviously, if more information is required, or investors need support with navigating those, then obviously, we remain at their disposal to support them through the process. In terms of the landscape at this point in time, and what reforms could the country make to be more competitive for foreign investors, I think that's absolutely crucial and central. I've seen that around the world, and particularly in Southeast Asia, quite frankly, the easier and smoother you make the regulatory environment for businesses and investors, you're going to attract more investment. I think to that end, though, Timor-Leste, I think, has laid some solid foundations, whether it's the 2021 mining code and the establishment of the ANP and the ANM. The initiative show that the government is serious about creating the right environment for investment. Can it do more? Absolutely, just like in any other country. So I think there's definitely opportunities to further streamline and provide further regulatory reforms. I think the next phase is all about making things that work well in practice. So simplifying the approvals, making rules more transparent, and also strengthening our environmental and social safeguards, for example. I think the ASEAN membership is going to certainly push this along, because Timor-Leste will need to align with regional frameworks and regional standards, and then hopefully over time, global frameworks and global standards as well. From my market insight perspective, I think investors are watching for predictability and capability, and I think the great thing is Timor-Leste is learning a lot from its regional peers, but also adapting solutions to fit its own context. And I think that's exactly how sustainable reforms can happen.
Mm-hmm. No, Gaurav, I agree with you 100%. Joining the ASEAN the mining code as well. There's a lot of things that is getting developed in Timor Leste as well. So hopefully, after joining the ASEAN, even the rules is going to change for the investors to have this one ASEAN rule for the investors to come and invest in Timor Leste as well. And it's great to see a Genexa advisory that knows a lot of things in Timor Leste, the rules, the mining code, the regulators, and the market reports that you have in your website as well. For local businesses, it's also really important for them to start taking a look at the actual rules of the country as well, to see how they can expand further and further. Starting off with, let's say, international operational standards. How can investors and developers work with local businesses and workforce to create lasting value while meeting international operational standards? There's a lot of companies that actually have this local content going on, or they actually work with the Timorese people to operate and have a great lasting economy. And it's actually very impactful to see Timorese working on their own projects as well. And that's why they always, like every single company, tries and have such a local content kind of thing in their projects going on that can help the country's economy, and they can actually help having this kind of international operation standards for their company's vision as well.
Absolutely, Karam. I think this is, without a shadow of doubt, one of my favorite topics, because I think this is exactly where business success meets community success. I always say that you simply can't operate effectively in a country like Timor without strong local engagement. And so obviously working with local businesses helps achieve that. I think working closely with Timorese partners isn't just about good corporate citizenship. It's actually good business, in a practical way. When companies invest in training, skills transfer, and local capacity building, I think they build trust and also create the conditions for long-term success in the country. Projects with strong local participation are often more resilient, more efficient, and frankly much more sustainable. And I think as Timor integrates into ASEAN over the coming years ahead, I think those partnerships will even become more important, because they'll help local businesses really plug into regional supply chains and regional standards, in the Southeast Asian region more broadly.
Mhm. Exactly, Gaurav. I mean, local content, or actually it helps the economy even. I mean, that's why I always say that international companies should hire the local people of the actual country, not only to invest at the actual country, but to also help the economy, the local workforce as well. And this is why it's very important for every single company to hire locally as well, from the region that they are operating in. Talking about the actual future as well in terms of a country, it's kind of a, let's say, futuristic, optimistic kind of a question going on. But where do you see Timor Leste's energy and infrastructure sector in the next 10 to 15 years? They just joined the ASEAN. There's a lot of things that is going on in the region. And this is why I think this region is going to have a very good future, from them joining the ASEAN, from the projects that is going on at the region, from the investors that is really interested to invest in Timor Leste. What role can strategic advisors play in helping the country meet its development ambitions? For example, let's say Timor Leste's energy sector have a vision in the next 10 to 15 years. How can the strategic advisors play in helping the country meet the development ambition? If you know what I mean, how can you help Timor Leste to meet their visions and their plans, let's say till 2030 or till 2035? How can you actually help the countries to contribute to their own economy?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Again, a really good question. I think from my perspective, over the next decade and beyond, I really do see Timor-Leste evolving into a regional hub for energy and logistics. I mentioned the T-Bar Bay Port project earlier as an example, and I think that project will be critical in terms of being the freight and logistics hub, or helping Timor become one over the coming period. But I think the country is also making tangible progress with energy projects. So a great example is the 72 megawatt solar power plant and the 36 megawatt battery energy project that's being developed in Manatuto by the Itochu Group and EDF. Construction, as I understand, is set to begin next year in 2026, and it's going to be the first large-scale solar facility in the country. And I think this will pave the way for many other similar projects and initiatives to come. This project, for example, will dramatically cut diesel imports, lower energy costs, and move Timor closer to its net zero 2050 target. Again, it's a sign of how global partnerships can help translate into local transformation. Obviously, it goes without saying the role that Greater Sunrise project can play for the country more broadly, and again, help it become the regional hub for energy. To your question about what role can the advisors play, I think they can absolutely play a very critical and central role in helping shape the future of the country's strategic goals and visions. I think our role is as advisors to make sure these kind of opportunities are delivered as effectively and efficiently as possible. That means helping governments, but also helping businesses prioritize projects, structure partnerships, but importantly also to ensure strong governance and strong project delivery. Strategy is great, but it means nothing unless you can execute on it and execute on it well. So I think that's a critical role that good advisors can play, is to bridge that gap between strategy and execution.
Exactly, Gaurav. I mean, strategic global partnerships is really important for every single country as well, and that's why we always tell the companies to start building their visions for the country. What is their plans? What kind of things they are having, and their case studies. How can they help to grow the country's economy as well? Their vision and their mission and the country, and that's why the vision of each company is very important. And then I wanted to ask something different. What is the Genexa's advisory vision for Timor-Leste? Do you have a vision to help the actual country? Is there a specific kind of a vision, let's say internally or externally, that you are setting for Genexa Advisory? What is the vision or the mission of Genexa Advisory, Gura?
Yeah, thanks, Karan, for the question. I think I sort of touched on it in my response previously. I think for us, it's all about making impact. It's all about helping organizations bridge that gap between strategy and execution. So it's being able to provide our experience and insights to help inform and shape the approach that the businesses take to translate their strategic vision and ambitions into executed initiatives. So for me, that's what what great looks like from a Genexa perspective, is to be able to lean in and support not just the business community, but also government and regulators with that as well.
Mhm. No, I mean that is great, Gaurav. I mean that's why it's really connected to the fifth questions actually. What are the first steps for foreign investors should take when assessing opportunities in Timor-Leste energy or infrastructure? That's why I asked for the vision and mission of Genex's advisory, because I wanted to see how can the foreign investors um, take or actually grant the assessing opportunities, what kind of things they should actually consider or reevaluate when they're entering Timor Leste. Is there any kind of, for example, of course, there's advantages, disadvantages, but how can they actually, step in, and how can Genexa Advisory help them to step in?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, I think the first step for any foreign investor is to really understand the environment that they're working in or likely to be working in. So, I mean, the environment can be the regulations and laws, the governance frameworks that comes with that. The market, so understanding what the market opportunities looks like is obviously quite critical, but also the people. So in terms of local capability and capacity, but what are the human capital needs that they have. But I think the people is a broader piece than that. Is also working in with the local community, the local stakeholders in terms of what the stakeholder expectations are, because a lot of projects having that social license is critical to success. So I think that those are probably the three key ingredients in terms of the first steps that a new investor should take. I think as a general comment, I think Timor-Leste certainly rewards those investors who take the time to build the meaningful and true relationships and align with themselves with local priorities. So I think that all needs to be genuine from an investor perspective. And if to the extent that they can do that well, I think that places them in a good place for success. I think early engagement with government agencies, from Trade Invest all the way through to the relevant government departments that are critical to the investment is important. Talking to local partners, whether it's supply chain or business partners that the investors are working with, I think that's important. And I think another one that's sometimes forgotten about or not prioritized, and I'm not saying this just as an advisor, I think finding the right advisors who can understand the terrain that the organizations are looking to navigate. I think that's important, whether it's financial advisors, whether it's lawyers, whether it's the environmental specialists. I think it's just surrounding yourselves with the right advisors who understand the local nuances. I think that's often not prioritized, and from my perspective, it's shown us time and again how important that is to have all of that as part of the ecosystem. I think the market may be young in Timor, but it's certainly full of opportunities for people, that think long term and align with the country's broader development goals. I think that's how you create investments that matter, and investments that are not just financial, but also sustainable and social, yielding social outcomes as well. So I think there's a lot of aspects that a good investor, should have in front of mind.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, correct, Guru. I mean, there's a lot of companies that wants to go. Let's say I want to invest in a certain kind of country, and this is actually very hard, and that's why most of them fail if they don't have an advisory or someone to rely on. Of course, the government can always have they're always open for investment. However, you need an advisory, or you need someone who's really expert in the country to let you know the advantages, the disadvantages, the long-term impact, the return on investment as well. And this is why actually hiring the correct right advisor can actually really help you take a shortcut and actually understand the market and of course the advantages of the market itself. Gura, for the last questions, I actually combine them with each other because they are actually telling the same vision, let's say, of the question. What kind of factors makes Timor-Leste stand out as a frontier investment destination? And why should people invest in Timor-Leste and not at any other Southeast Asian country as well? There's a lot of things going on in Timor-Leste, but why should people actually invest in it? Why is it standing out, and why is it there? Which kind of parts of Timor-Leste's energy sector are currently the most attractive for private investors? If you had to, why did even Genexa Advisory chose Timor-Leste to invest and to actually have such a case studies and such a guide for investors to come and invest in? What makes this region like attractive from your thoughts and perspective, of course?
Yeah, thanks, Karam. Again, it's a great question. I think a few things make Timor-Leste really unique. Firstly, its strategic location. It's right between Indonesia and Australia, and it's certainly in the heart of the regional trade routes.
Mhm.
Secondly, I think it has now political stability, and it's a very young, growing workforce that gives it that long-term edge. And I think that's not, we shouldn't, de-emphasize that fact that, it's a young, growing country. So I think, again, from a workforce perspective, certainly offers a significant advantage. We touched on this at the start of this conversation, but again, just to emphasize, I think with the ASEAN membership, suddenly Timor has access to a massive integrated market. That alone changes the investment narrative. It's no longer an isolated frontier. It's part of that broader Southeast Asian, growth story. So combine that with a government that's genuinely, committed to reform and diversification. You've certainly got a small country that's punching above its weight, and with a huge exponential potential.
Exactly, Gaurav. I mean, thank you so much for answering this question. Actually, Timor-Leste has a lot of opportunities, and right now it's just the start. They just joined the ACN. They have a lot of things to cover as well. And I'm sure, our event, which is the fifth Timor-Leste Energy and Mining and Business Forum from the 24th to the 26th of November, will actually help a lot of investors to come and invest in the country. And of course, Genexa Advisory will be there. So hopefully everyone is gonna join us and be at the actual forum in Delhi. Gaurav, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much once again for joining this webinar. I hope that you enjoyed it. For everyone that would like to reach Genexa Advisory, of course, we will be sending you all of the details. And Gaurav, until then, hopefully I will see you in Delhi.
Thank you again, Karan, for making the time and the opportunity. And yeah, I look forward to seeing everyone in Delhi.
Great. Thank you so much, and have a great day ahead. And we will see you soon in Delhi, I hope. Thank you. Bye bye.